Is the Samsung Galaxy A04s worth buying in 2024? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, and this is the Samsung Galaxy A04s. Now, this device was launched in late 2022, so at this point the phone is well over a year old since its release. But because of that, I did want to make this video to kind of look back on this device to see if it's still a worthy option. I know since being launched, the A04s has been a very successful phone for Samsung, and for a very good reason, because we're getting a lot of really impressive specifications here, despite this being a very affordable device. Now with the A04s, we're getting a very large 6.5-inch display. Now this display is IPS LCD, and it does feature a 90Hz refresh rate. So that does make things a bit smoother compared to a 60Hz refresh rate display. Now, unfortunately, this display is 720p, but despite that, things do still look very crisp and clear, and I'm actually very impressed with the colors as well. Now, the PPI is 270, we're getting a 20:9 aspect ratio, so a more narrow but taller form factor, and we're getting an 80.7% screen-to-body ratio. So pretty small bezels overall. However, the bottom bezel is a bit thicker, and then up top here we do have a 5-megapixel front-facing camera located in a water drop notch. Now for a long time I thought phones with notches would soon be a thing of the past, but even the A05s, the successor to this device, that phone does have a water drop notch as well. So even the latest and greatest budget smartphones from Samsung still look very similar to this device. So it's not like the design with this phone is necessarily outdated at all. But getting back into the display here, again, it does look really good, and having a large display is great for multiple reasons. I know for me, it's really nice to have a big display because I like watching video content on my phone, so having this really large 6.5-inch canvas really makes that experience even better. Now to get the most out of this 90Hz display, you are going to want to head over to the settings, then go over to display, which is, where is it? Right here. And then go down here to where it says motion smoothness, and then switch it, if it's not already switched already, to adaptive from standard. So in standard mode, you do get longer battery life, but in exchange for that, the display is limited at 60 Hz. So with adaptive, it'll run the display at 90 Hz when it makes sense, and then when it doesn't, it won't. But I can definitely tell the difference with a phone that does have a 90 Hz refresh rate compared to a phone that doesn't. Now with this device, we are getting 64 gigabytes of internal storage, which is definitely a very generous amount, especially for a lower end phone like this one. So I suppose it really depends on your current phone and how much storage you have right now, because if your current device, for example, only has 32 gigs and you're upgrading to this phone with 64 gigs, then you'll be getting twice the storage. But if your current phone does have 64 gigs, then I suppose in that regard at least, this phone wouldn't really be much of an upgrade for you. The good news though is that the phone does feature microSD card expansion, so if you do want to offload photos and videos, for example, you can then put them on that SD card and then free up some internal space. Now with the Galaxy A04s, there's no wireless charging, which is a bit unfortunate, but not really a feature I expect with the phone in this segment. But thankfully, we do have a fingerprint sensor located on the power button. So we'll give that a try right now, and you can see it's very fast and responsive. Let's try that one more time. So that works great, and in addition to that, this phone does support Face Unlock. So I do appreciate that we do have multiple methods here for accessing the Galaxy A04s. Now I already talked a little bit about the front-facing camera, which is 5 megapixels, but then on the back of the phone, we are getting a triple camera setup. So I do appreciate that even though the Galaxy A04s is a very low-end smartphone, especially compared to Samsung's more premium options, we're still getting quite a few cameras here, and those cameras are very good for what this phone is. So we're getting a 50 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera for portrait mode, and a 2 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. Now if you're looking for a quick and easy way to get to the camera app here on the device, all you have to do is just double press on the power button, and then you'll quickly be taken over to that app. Now there are some things I want to point out here. So that 50 megapixel main camera doesn't actually capture images at 50 megapixels by default. Instead, you actually have to go up here and select 3x4 50 megapixels to take photos in that full 50 megapixel mode. But now with that enabled, all you have to do is tap on the shutter button, and then you can see there's a slight delay there, but it will capture photos in the full 50 megapixels. Now the reason why that's not the default mode is because it does take a little bit longer there to capture an image. As you can see, with that delay, it's not really practical to be the main default mode. But in addition to that, 50 megapixel photos do take up quite a bit more space compared to standard photos, so I would really only use that feature in certain situations where it really makes sense. Now here's the image that I did capture in 50 megapixels, and then zooming in, you can see things are very crisp and clear even after zooming in quite a bit. Now there is also the macro camera, which we can access by going over to the More tab, and then with that camera, you can also get very close up, but honestly, I feel like capturing images in 50 megapixels and then cropping in actually produces a better looking result most times than just using the macro camera. But at least we do have multiple options here when it comes to capturing close-up images. Now heading back over to the camera app, we also have an option for portrait mode, so you can get those nice blurred out backgrounds. You can also adjust the level of blur as well. And then flip around to the front-facing camera, we can take portrait selfies, or if we want to, we can take standard selfies, but also what's cool too is that you can crop out a little bit for a group selfie option as well. So again, the standard mode and then the group selfie mode, and then this is how standard selfies look when we're outside of portrait mode. Now this phone does support 1080p video recording with the front and rear cameras, which is also really awesome. Now with this device, we are getting 4GB of RAM paired up with the Samsung Exynos 850 processor. Now overall, I do think this phone is pretty slow. I do wish it was a bit faster than it is, but if you can get a really good deal on it, then I suppose that's not really much of a problem, but you should expect to find at least some lag when using this device. It's certainly nowhere near as fast as an S-series phone, for example, from Samsung, but if you are looking for a device that kind of just does the fundamentals of a smartphone, with occasional phone calls, text messages, capturing photos here and there, and also a little bit of social media, then the A04s will probably be a pretty good fit for you because you don't really need a very demanding smartphone. Now I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 6, and here are the scores that I got from that test. So I got a single core score of 217 and a multi-core score of 1025. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to get a better idea of how the Galaxy A04s compares to the phone that you currently have. Because if this device is slower than your current smartphone, then it certainly isn't any sort of upgrade. Now with the Galaxy A04s, we're getting a very large 5000 mAh internal battery, and we're also getting, at this point, Android 13. The phone has been since updated from Android 12, which is what it originally shipped with, so that's really cool. And I am expecting to get Android 14 at some point, but I believe that's the end of the updates for this device. Now this phone did originally come with Android 12, and it has since been updated to Android 13. So it is nice that we are getting some software support here with the A04s. Now unfortunately, there is no NFC with this device, so if you do want to use it for tap and pay, using services such as Samsung Pay, then you can't do that. Now taking a closer look at the hardware of the phone, on the left side we have just the slot for the microSD card and SIM card. On the right side we have volume up, volume down, and also the power button, which doubles as the fingerprint sensor. Then up top here we have the noise cancelling microphone, and then on the bottom we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and the speaker. And then on the back of the phone we have this glossy finish, which does pick up a lot of fingerprints and smudges. I'm not a huge fan of that. But we have the triple camera setup, flash, and Samsung logo, and that's pretty much it. But this concludes my video on the Samsung Galaxy A04s in 2024. I'm really curious to know what you think about this device, and certainly let me know in the comments section below. Do you think this is still a worthy option, or are there better choices out there for the price? But I'm super curious to know what you think, but this is Kevin here, this is the Galaxy A04s, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and have a great rest of your day.